Three, two, one, and bingo. Welcome, everybody, once again to the Light Bear. I always get the title wrong. Light Bear podcast. And we always say not the Light Bears because we don't have all the answers. We're not here claiming to know anything to mastery. Anyway, welcome to our podcast with our host, Kate Ola, myself, and a special guest today, James Dawson. How you doing there, James?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Pretty dandy, pretty dandy. Did you get a good workout today?
I got a little on Instagram Live this morning, a little 30-minute, well, less than 30 minutes. I was teaching, for those of you out there that don't know, I'm an English teacher out here in Japan. And there was a lady, she's got quite a following on Instagram. So I connected up with her and I said, okay, let's do a live together. And because she noticed on my stories that I work out and stuff. So I said, okay, let's do a little workout together. So I think one or two people were watching and joined in at home for a nice little home workout. So that was nice.
That's good. So what kind of workout, what did you guys get done?
Well, I got the pack of cards out.
Oh, okay.
And I just did a very simple one and just time ran out after 20 minutes. And we just did, so I forget the name of the workout with using the pack of cards. What is it?
Yeah. The deck of pain, but I call it the deck of bleed.
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So so you have the spades, the clubs, the hearts, the diamonds. Each shape or whatever represents a different exercise. And when you pull out that card at random, you have to do that number of that exercise.
Yeah, so they've got that for the boxers do that for the push-ups as well. Whatever number you get.
Yeah,
how many push-ups.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was a really quick and easy one. And she does no exercise and I had to lower the bar straight away, actually. But
yeah, the deck of bleed is no joke. I remember the first time I did it, it took me a little bit of over an hour. And the fastest I ever got it done is a little bit under 30 minutes. And I was like, I couldn't believe it, but it's no, and it originated in prison. Prisoners will do some brutal deck of bleeds, you know.
So you lowered the bar for the lady.
Well, I know that she doesn't do exercise. Like the most she ever does is a little walk. She's not, fat and out of shape, but she doesn't exercise. And I wanted to gauge. I said, how many sit-ups? No, how many sit-ups can you do or crunches? And she said, well, I can definitely do. It's less than 10, and I said, okay, let's try 30. And I don't know why.
I could definitely sit up on my chair.
I thought I guess you guys are the same. We work out a lot and exercise. It's easy to forget that your average person just can't do much at all. So I said, I didn't believe her, and I said, let's start with 30 crunches because I thought, well, anyone could do 30 crunches, and then she was straight away out of breath on everything we did, but that's normal. So I lowered the bar just to a regular.
It's good. I find it good to lower the bar, as you scare them away sometimes,
Exactly, yeah. And I kept saying to her, like, let's not force it.
Yeah, you don't want to overwhelm them sometimes because when they see how fit you are, they can't keep up, and sometimes it discourages them from continuing because they feel inadequate.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny now that you said that, you kind of forget how fit you are, right? And sometimes when I'm like training and I've done like 50 minutes or 40 minutes, and I've done something like 100, 200 push-ups, and you know my workouts, then I'm thinking like, fuck, man, like I'm really out of shape. Like I don't think that's enough. You know what I mean? And then when you tell other people, they're like, are you fucking insane? Are you insane? Are you mental? Like 200 push-ups? That's a lot, dude.
Well, that's what happened when basically the second time that me and Gio met. The first time we met randomly in a park, and he saw me practicing my kata because part of my story is I came to Japan to continue doing karate, and I was just doing a bit of kata in the park, and he kind of said something to me, and later on I found him who was with his family, and because I was kind of fishing for teachers to teach at my school, and in Japan, if as a foreigner, there's a good chance that you're an English teacher. So I kind of said something back to him, and then But he mentioned karate and he said, oh, I want to try it. And so I invited him. And the next week or 2 weeks later or whatever, he came along, obviously to try out. And as soon as he turned up, he said, oh, I'm just going to sit and watch because I've just had a workout actually. And I was like, oh no, you can just join in. It's not that hard. And he said, well, I've just done I'm not even exaggerating. He said something like, I've just done 500 press-ups, 300 pull-ups, and whatever. And that's not even exaggerating. I was like, what the hell? I've never heard of anyone doing that amount of exercise in a year. Never mind.
I was doing that amount back then. Anyway, continue.
Oh my God, Gio is something else.
Yeah. Anyway, he joined in and it was good. So
well, what tripped him out is because he wasn't sure because you meet a lot of weird people out here. A lot of the expats are kind of like their wheels aren't kind of moving properly. And so I was telling him yeah, dude, my workouts the way I work out. I don't really go to the gym. I do this at the park and I do dynamic tension and stuff. And then I just wrestle with trees.
Yeah.
And then he's thinking what the fuck is this guy talking about wrestling with the trees?
Yeah, I was like, I've stumbled across another weird one here. And then anyway, got to know each other and, got on really well. And one thing led on to another, and Gio did help out in my school before he moved elsewhere, and his professionalism and the effort and enthusiasm that he brought to the class, and that bled onto the students. That was impressive. And then just, we clicked on in a number of different ways, and that's why we're still friends now. So
yeah, then we came up with something good together. We got our green shadows, but I think one of the things I enjoy the most is I love working out with James because and with you too, Kay, because we just get to business. I know he can keep up, even if he falls. Even if I fall 5 reps or 10 reps behind him, we still get to it. We're very focused on what we want to do, and just working out with him is just a blast. And
I remember the first time I worked out with Gio, man. You made me see the power twister in a different light, man. I had the power twister. I'd always do my reps. I do my fast reps. And then you had me doing this slow stuff and in all these weird positions. I thought my forearms were going to snap. But
because
I managed to get through it. And I thought to myself, what is this?
Well, I thought the same thing too, man. If I'm going to work out with this guy's probably going to be like the African Bruce Lee, dude. He's going to light me up because I'm just a geezer, you know what I mean? And, but yeah, it's great. And so one of the things I always look forward to when James comes over to the house, because he's not just a friend, but he's family. He's part of my family, and my wife and my kids see him as the uncle, and, but the one thing we always get up to is just all right, man, you think you want to get away tonight on the bicycles to go get a pumperoons, get a pump. We go to the gym in the middle of the night. It's freaking cold outside. That kind of weather. You're we take our shirts off, dude, and we're pumping it. So anyway, let's move on a little bit here. Now that things are nice and toasty. Last time you had told me that you were going on a podcast last Sunday, and it was about this lady. Now that we're all on the topic of fitness, we might as well just have some continuity and then, travel on to other universes. And you had told me that she had some struggles, being that, some physical struggles. And I'd like to know more about this lady, a little bit of her history, and how did tell me a little bit about the podcast, what you think about her, and maybe one day we can have her on the podcast too, mate. So go ahead and take it away.
Okay, so funny enough, it was the Mace man that introduced me to her. So I told you the Mace man, me and him have dialogue, sometimes message each other.
Yeah, what's his name again? Because I'm yeah. That guy's a beast, man.
Yes, yeah, he's seriously something else. So he one day when he was messaging him, he was like, "Yeah, Kay, why don't you link up with this lady? She's got scoliosis just like you, and she's a mace swinger too, So he forwarded me to her, followed her page, and I could see her doing a lot of good work. She's got a little class where she trains people. She's always putting inspiring quotes on her page, and one thing I noticed, she had a podcast where she invites people with similar challenges and to get their story. So one day I just noticed she was going through my Instagram. She was liking some of my posts, and she just reached out. She was like, "Oh, would you like to come on the podcast?" Immediately, I said yes, because I believed I'm the right person for her kind of podcast, if that makes sense.
Yes. Well, you guys have a connection there, dude.
Yes. So I went on there on Sunday, and it was amazing. I got to share my story about how I came through adversity and a bit of how it all started. And I learned a bit about her. So she said she used to be a ballet dancer, and she was diagnosed with scoliosis very early in her age. But she was lucky she never dealt with pain with her scoliosis, because scoliosis is really painful, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I had problems with my back too, whereas when I was younger, I always stood hunched back. And then I developed a really bad curvature, which caused a lot of pain in my neck. And it caused, what do you call that? Freaking, well, dizziness, vertigo, cervical vertigo, confusion. I would feel like I was on mushrooms or something sometimes. And it took me years to be able to correct that. I had to make a conscious effort. But I can't imagine like having your back do a question mark on you.
Yeah. But she was lucky. She said she never felt pain with it. And she was given a brace at a young age. And eventually she had her spine fused. So obviously she was a bit immobile. Yeah,
the whole thing?
No, just a bit on the lumbar side.
So how many vertebrae?
I think she's got about 2, 3 or 4.
Okay, I mean that's still uncomfortable, but it's not bad. I've seen wrestlers or people that break their neck or have like narrating, and they fuse their neck. They move like like the Terminator.
Well, as you can see, I'm literally the Terminator as well. I can't.
You're the Blackinator, bro.
Yeah.
Have you, Jay? Have you had something fused?
Me, yes. My skull fused to my C1 by itself due to the injury, and then the doctors fused my C1 to C2. So I'm fused from my skull down to my C2. I can't turn my neck, and I can't lift it up.
That's a serious surgery, man. People die from that surgery, right? C1 is no joke.
The doctors, they to the bed when they discovered it, and they were like, "How the hell are you alive?" And they came to the conclusion it was because I exercised. That's how I didn't die.
Well, there's a story of this wrestler, because I remember I was experiencing a lot of pain in my neck and discomfort from just injuries and poor posture. There's this one wrestler. He has a site that says "Wrestlers Protect Your Neck," and so what happens? He was at a tournament, and he broke 3 of his vertebrae, literally shattered them, And so they had to rush him to the hospital, and they're like, "How the fuck are you alive?" And what it was is that his neck, he had developed such a strong neck, and if it wasn't for those muscles, he would have died. It kept the stability. So the doctor was right, mate. The doctor was right.
Yeah.
And
so that's another good reason why it's good to stay in shape, because I didn't know I was going to break my neck. But had I not been a person that worked out in the past, I won't be here now talking to you guys,
How'd you break your neck?
I was going to say that when and how did you break your neck?
It was a freak. It's still a mystery till today. I kept going to the hospital. Nothing's wrong with you. Take painkillers. So one day, just after about 4 years of me like, look, something is wrong with my neck. So they decided, okay, let's do an X-ray. Oh my God, his neck is broken. They started sellotape.
What the fuck, bro?
Hey, neck's been broken for years. We don't understand how you're alive. They actually had to leave the room, and they were whispering in the corner.
when the doctors are whispering in the corner,
something going on.
Either that or they have no idea what the fuck they're gonna do. It's what it is. You know what I mean?
So, I just randomly in there, I wondered. You said is it scoliosis? You say you've got or had. Is that something that just happens naturally and there's nothing you can do about it, or is that brought on by yourself in any way?
That's a bit of that's a good question, because I'm not too sure how it comes across, because when I was born, I'm pretty sure I didn't have a scoliosis. I'm sure my spine was straight, but maybe due to improper movement patterns, lifting weights. We all love to lift weights, but sometimes we're not taught how to do it properly.
Yep.
Who knows if I was bench pressing and leaning to the left side too much.
Yeah.
And even my spine followed that line, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And that's what I'm sure I've heard before. And people say, people almost treat it as if they were born with it, and they get the diagnosis and there's nothing you can do about it. But yeah, as I thought, you're not born with it. It's just the way you walk, the way you sit down, the way you get out of bed every single day, that leads to it.
Yeah.
Well, check this out right here. Let me read this for you. Scoliosis is the sideways curvature of the spine that most often is diagnosed in adolescence. While scoliosis can occur in people with conditions such as cerebral palsy and muscular dystrophy, the cause of most childhood scoliosis is unknown. Most cases of scoliosis are mild, but some curves worsen as children grow. So it's just one of those things. Yeah.
I think it's movement patterns. I think it's not learning the right way to balance your body, and then it just lopsides itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so too.
And I've seen before and afters of people, even just within a few months, just with the change of mindset and a realization of actually, it's not your spine that's in that shape. You're moving it into that shape. So as long as you change these things, and within a few months, I've seen cases of where it's not fully healed, but dramatically improved.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Reprogramming, reconditioning your muscle memory, the way your muscles react, because they're constantly used to being in a certain position, and they get used to that. Just like you get used to going to sleep at a certain time, you get accustomed to almost anything that you do consistently.
And the body is the best engine for adapting. It will adapt to whatever you present.
Yeah, it's just a matter of habit. You just say, like, look, motherfucker, I'm telling you what to do. I mean, it sounds a little bit kind of like hocus pocus, but in most cases, it works, and those are the mysteries of the body. And that's one thing that draws me to fitness. All these histories you hear of, like, these guys that almost fucking died and they went off somewhere to some mountain just to fucking croak because they didn't want to be like the paints in someone's arse, and so they ended up staying there, and then suddenly they start eating weeds, and then just like, oh, I started doing this shit, and then started doing katas and shit like that, and then they come out like Moses with 2 tablets of goodness. And it's
funny enough.
Go ahead.
When you say katas, I'm a bit interested in the katas that James is doing. So the karate, James, how long have you been doing karate for?
Well, I did it for about a year or so when I was a young kid, because my older brother did it. But I wasn't very good, and I didn't really follow through with it. And I played rugby for quite a few years when I was younger, and I was aiming to play at quite a high level, and I was quite dedicated to that. But then after university, or even halfway through university, just because of injuries and stuff, I stopped playing rugby, and then I was kind of looking for some kind of new challenge and something to aim towards physically. And I remembered the karate days, and at that point I was I still follow the UFC, so mixed martial arts. And I was thinking through the different martial arts. I think I'd tried a bit of boxing, and I quite liked that. But something about the martial arts, the mental side of it, and the discipline really attracted me. So I put boxing to one side, and then I was looking at all of them, and basically I wanted to know how to punch properly, effectively, and kick. I just wanted to know that I had a good knockout punch on me. Is the reasoning why I chose karate.
You didn't want to go like this and shit, right?
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, so that's why I started karate, and then I was about 24, 25, more or less, and then continued right through. And then when I decided to leave England, which was kind of always the plan, just because I've got lots of experience with languages and studying abroad and stuff like that. That's the reason why I chose Japan, because I was doing karate and I thought, well, I've got the contacts there, so I thought I'd give it a go for a year or two out in Japan. So that's how I got there. I've not been doing it recently, in all honesty. But yeah, so I was doing it. Yeah, I've kind of got other things going on, and I fell in love with it in England and the training there and the style there, and there was a period where, because Japan's where it came from and it was the original stuff. I was on board with it for a while, but it's kind of all geared towards the kids, and it's a sport for the kids now rather than for the adults. And where I was learning in England, it was a group of, adults that were, you were drained in sweat after every session. You're pushed in all sorts of different ways, which is what I like. So obviously you've got to know how to push yourself, and I do. But yeah, it got a bit tiring in the end, and lost a bit of motivation. So that's where I'm at with it now.
Yeah, well, talking about that, before I move out to Totori, we're about to go take care of all the paperwork, and then I should be out there in March. There was this guy before the Macaroni 19 hit. There was this guy when I originally came back from Florida that I looked up, and he is a boxing kickboxer coach, and he's made 3 champions in Japan that have come out of his gym.
Oh wow!
And so I went to go check it out, and then I told him, like, look, I just want to learn how to punch properly, how to kick properly, and combine that with my jiu-jitsu, not only for fitness but for self-defense. I'm a guy. I'm part of, I take care of my family, and I think every guy should know how to defend himself if he has to, at least give it a good try. I said, and I'm lacking in this department, and the kicks, I just know some basic stuff, and I got a little bit of experience, but I'm a bit up in age, and I got injuries, so I don't really want to do some heavy sparring. It's like, you don't need to. And so I'm going back to Tsuchiyama, James, to the other house we have, which is in suburbia. And I'm going to go and train. It's a chance I got to train with him before I leave, because I won't see him again for 3 months. And I'm sure I'm going to go at least 4 times a week. I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot, and take that with me. And then once I go out to where I'm going, I'll look for another dojo over there. But like James is talking, like I went to his karate class, and like when I saw James, I was like, oh man, this fucking guy's like the freaking juggernaut and shit, dude.
I mean, dude,
James is huge, bro. When you stand next to James, even when he's small, even when you're small, fool, you're huge. And he just walks, just fucking, he has planets orbiting his ass, dude. And so when I saw him put on his like gi and shit, which barely fit him, dude, it looked like one of those classic gis on him, like from back in the days where, the pants came down up to your knees and shit, dude. It's like, it's got the stank. And then you start doing, like, he knew how to throw a punch, he had that snap, like you could hear, and I was like, oh, fuck, dude, I thought he was the teacher. And here comes fucking broke up fucking Mr. Miyagi and shit. Because at least Mr. Miyagi was badass, dude. But this guy is like, he drank a little bit too much with fucking Jackie Chan's fucking coach and shit, dude, on the Drunken Master, and became Drunken Bastard. But the guy had a good heart. He was a nice guy. But I just didn't sense the karate there. And I really wanted to strike up a friendship with James. So I didn't want to say anything like, dude, your teacher sucks, And that's the case, is that it's geared for kids. And so I wasn't feeling it, so him and I just ended up
also karate, I know you said that there's discipline to it, but karate is more of a sport, isn't it?
Currently
it's more aggressive, isn't it? The kung fu side of things in China, I think they're a bit more spiritual, aren't they?
It depends on the style, and there's a bunch of styles. There's the Kyokushin, which is like it's no head punches. You can kick to the head, I think, but that's bash, 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 close contact, close quarters. Yeah. That's quite rough and whatever. And then there are a bunch of others, but the kind of the mainstream ones, well, that's fairly mainstream, is the what you might see in the Olympics recently. You've got the kata, but you've also got the kumite, and it's you make contact, but you're not meant to knock them out. And in fact, if you do knock them out, you get disqualified. So it's the point scoring thing, and that's what I do. And the reason why it's like that is because back in the old days there was no protection, and you did have to make the contact. But it wasn't and I wasn't around back then, so I'm not quite sure on the rules.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
It was a point scoring system, so you needed to punch with control to be able to keep playing. Like so it is a sport.
What we have in Japan, because actually karate is not really Japanese; it's from Okinawa, and so they imported that. They took that to the mainland, and they changed it drastically to compete with boxing. So they turned it more. They wanted to
Aggressive.
have like the Japanese version of boxing, whereas in Okinawa, if you go train in Okinawa, like a lot of the dreams of the karatekas are people that really train karate, and a lot of guys that are serious about the karate, and they tell me, dude, if you want to learn karate really or karate, you need to go up to Okinawa. And over there is seen more of like a brutal combat thing. They are insane with it. And not only that, you get to see like the combat aspects that you saw originate from the Shaolin and all that stuff. They have throws or punching you on the ground. It's some serious. And in my
Brutal.
opinion, yeah, in my opinion, like the closest to that I've seen here, I went to a dojo here where they were actually pretty brutal. They were teaching like strikes to the neck and stuff like that. Kyokushin. Kyokushin is pretty hardcore, man. You know, if you can disconnect from the habit that is created by sparring to pull back and actually, you know, I've seen some people wearing the gear and then they just commit to it, you know. Have you ever done that kind of sparring, James?
No, no. But what we did back in England, we did a lot of pad work as well. So, so the kumite taught you control, because, you know, to be able to actually punch at the right distance with the right timing or whatever, there's a skill to it. But also we did a lot of pad work. So we were taught how to introduce the power into the punch and the kicks. And so we knew how to do both, essentially.
Oh, those reverse punches, man. I've seen some karatekas on the street that, you know, mixed it with some actual street fighting, and just the speed that where that punch came from. The one thing about the karate punch, it may not be like that sweet science from boxing, which boxing got the punching down. Nothing will ever take it. That's American karate or Western karate. But the power of a reverse punch, bro, I've seen somebody literally just get all their front teeth and their mouth are like this, and there's no the one that just comes from the back to the boom, and the way they hit it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So the beauty of that is it comes from the waist. So it's like, if it's up here, you know someone's going to punch you if they're like, okay. Whereas if you're like, okay, I don't want to fight, and then it comes from down here. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, there's a beauty. Go ahead, man.
Did you practice with that? What's the name of that board? The Makari board or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. No, I don't think I did. I'm not even sure if I've seen one before, but I used to just punch the table and shit like that. So like,
I like the skin on my. I like this. I'll just take you to the ground once I get a good kick, and then I'll choke you out.
Been abused.
Yeah, look at you, man. That shit looks like you walk on your hands and shit, dude.
Like I put it in a blender or something.
Yeah, dude. I've always had like a special secret love for karate, though. There's something about karate, you know, that's beyond just combat. And again, Okinawa really emphasizes the spirit of karate, and it's, as you see, like the katas originate in yoga.
Yes.
And it's not only, that's why I'm in love with those stories of the one bloke who took off somewhere and then he just started doing forms and stuff like that and healed himself. There's something that just connects you to your body and helps you feel you're getting contact with your body more. And it's so, I had another bloke from England, a good friend of mine. He owned a pub out here in Japan. He still lives out in Saitama, James. And he came out here because of karate, you know, and he had like a really sweet job back in England, but he had the chance to come out here and train with some masters. And it was like, you know, fuck the silliness, I'm going out there. And so he came out here, fell in love, decided to quit his job and then just stay. And the guy was telling me, I took one of his classes, he's about 82 years old and he still teaches, and he's no joke, man. He says, look, karate is your portable, your built-in chiropractor.
It is. I was trying to get to that, you know, the katas in karate, aikido, those little flows that they do where they throw you by just the flow. What people don't realize is that when you're doing that, you're actually healing yourself.
Yeah.
You're doing movements that are putting all your bones and your your body parts in alignment.
There was he's now passed away, but the top guy that was in the top of my association when I first came to Japan, I think he had a number of strokes, and so he wasn't in a good way. And there were like 2 or 3 katas that he took out of the collection, and he chose them for. He was actually a chiropractor, I think, or he had his own clinic, and he chose like 2 or 3 katas and just gradually built them back up. And it was being able to do those katas just fully rehabilitated him. That's what he did for rehabilitation.
Well, yes. It's not just combined with movements, but the guys that really study it, as we're talking about Wim Hof. We both know about Wim Hof and the Bas Rutten O2 trainer. The importance of breath and combined with breath.
Yeah.
It's just such an amazing work to the body. And I do that with when James comes out here, and you see when I train, okay, breathe in, release. I really incorporate that into my workout. And I learned that from the likes of what's his name, Alexander Sass talked about it.
Yes.
And this other guy, I forgot his name, but I had a book by him of isometrics, and the first book is Push Yourself to Fitness or something like that. I'll send you the link. And he really made the connection with the breath. It's like what people don't get is when they do isometrics, they got the breathing all fucked up. And that's why you see people like, like the power lifters, where they built all this and then they're holding their breath and then they pass out.
That's the problem.
You can't hold your breath. It says if you hold your breath like that, now you can get an aneurysm because you raise your blood pressure, and you got to circulate. You build in by inhaling, you charge up, and then on explosions you release the breath. And so katas don't do that, mate. Go ahead, mate.
Yeah, you can't fight tension with tension. So the thing is, the exercises are tense. So if your body is tense with the activity, your breath has to be relaxed.
Yes.
You cannot add 2 elements of tension together, because you're going to cause an explosion, or you're going to cause too much pressure to the point where you get a hernia or something.
Yes. Well, real quick, let's deviate back. Let's go back, make a little U-turn and go back. I want to know a little bit more about that lady. So you went to her podcast, you said she had scoliosis, and what got her into the podcast, and tell me a little bit more about that.
She was a ballet dancer herself.
Mm-hmm.
So she was diagnosed with scoliosis from a young age. And like I said, she said that luckily she never had to deal with the pain of the scoliosis, but she felt the limitation, and she felt she couldn't do ballet anymore. She said that she used to go to schools to enroll for ballet cheerleading, and they will see the scar on her back, and they used to send her home. Because those sort of sports, they're cutthroat. You have to be the best. You have to be the most athletic. There's no room for error in those sort of things. Ballet, cheerleading, they have to be really good. So they were really harsh to her. When they saw her condition, there was no mercy. It was like, look, you can't do it. Go home. They wouldn't even see if she was capable. So obviously it was playing on her mental health, was playing on her. And she wanted to prove that she is capable. She can do stuff. And somehow she bumped into the mace. So her thing is the mace. She believes really strongly in the mace.
It's an amazing thing. It balances your shoulder girdle, which is very important. I mean, a lot of people have the scoliosis right there.
Yes.
You get that shit from this,
Yes, and the thoracic spine, the upper spine.
Yes.
Below the cervical, that place there is important to keep it stable. And one thing the mace does, it will make your thoracic spine really sturdy.
Yes.
When your upper back is sturdy, it kind of translates along the spine, if that makes sense.
So how long has she been doing this podcast, Rooms?
I think she said she's been doing it for about a year or 2.
Okay, great.
We're gonna have to get her on this podcast.
Yeah. So please reach out to her, because I'd love to get her story. And maybe if James has time, I'd like to have all of us and just have just go geek out on this fitness and get some good knowledge.
Yeah, because that podcast, she was more about asking me about my story. So if we get her on here, we'll be able to get her story and allow her to speak about her condition.
Yeah, definitely.
Last time about me.
Well, definitely she could be an inspiration And that's what this whole thing's all about. We just trying to inspire each other in this era of constant negativity and everybody this doom and gloom and complaining about everything. And look at this lady, with this health issues. The bloke there that you talked about, he had some strokes, and he just said, fuck it, I'm gonna freaking do this first, and guess what, now I can do this shit. And people don't realize how good they have it. And I guess we have so much now that we create our own
problem,
our own problems. And things can always be worse. And I've walked down that road, and now I'm just like thinking like, yeah, you know what, don't complain as much, man, because at least the bombs aren't dropping above our heads.
It's
What
true.
I mean? There is that reality. And so that's why I like to do this. And it's like, guess what? Us of us out here that don't have to worry about bombs dropping over our heads. Yeah, we all have pain, and pain is pain. But you know what? Realize what you have, pick your shit up, put your little stick up here with your gear, and get on moving. Because it ain't gonna stop for anybody. And we're all eating a shit sandwich. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Everybody's eating a shit sandwich, so it's just how you gonna eat it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You choose to eat it like this, or just say like, fuck this shit, dude, put some mustard in that.
You know
what I mean? So
it's fun because pain is the teacher. Anybody that lives a life with no pain has not learned anything.
No, we need a slap in the face. And so we're growing up in this, now we have a generation, and not to say we didn't have our ills back when we were young, but more than ever, like there's a generation that got everything, got the peak, the cusp of everything. And so now they feel quite despondent and disconnected, but they haven't entitled. They haven't had that struggle, and so when they you don't have a struggle, guess what? Because like you said, we learn from pain, and human beings like to solve things. We need problems to solve. That gives us purpose in life. And so when you don't have a problem, guess what? Most people will create a fucking problem. Excuse my language. And that's just how it is, but challenges are good in our life. And now we're going to go on to a challenge, because James and I, we're both expats, man. And Japan is a different part of the world, man. A lot of people say, oh, Japan is interesting. Oh, and it's so neat. Oh, and the Zen and all that. Japan is not like what people think, bro. It's not at all. And it takes some work to come out here, and it definitely takes some courage once you're out here.
That's the thing that I want to ask, because both of you have got that both in common. Now you've both left where you come from, which you've left your hometowns and come into an unknown territory. Whether you had to do it, you wanted to learn martial arts or not, it was still, you had to go to the unknown. So I want to sort of get an idea of both of your stories of how you dealt with getting to the unknown territory, how you dealt with language barriers. Did you have any struggles when you first went there? Like, you had to struggle to survive because you come to a place where you can't speak the language. Maybe you didn't have enough funds, and you have to build yourself to a point where you are now. So it's interesting to hear your stories, both of you.
Yeah, well, James, why don't you start with yours, mate? I'm really interested. I mean, we've talked a little bit about more, but I really want to hear the detail, because you've always been a great inspiration to me. So, you got out here because of the karate, and then take it from there, man. Give us some love.
Yeah, well, dialing it back, I mentioned the languages for me. So when I was in university in England, I ended up doing French and Spanish. And so I spent a bit of time in France and a bit of time in Spain. And part of that involved me just flying over myself and, setting myself up for the year. So, but that was kind of within a semi-controlled, I was going within university, but there was a lot of stuff which, I had to work out for myself, and I was going to a new culture, not a completely new language, because I'd studied a bit at school and stuff, but I strolled into that, no problems, and the challenges, I embraced and I enjoyed it. So when it came to Japan, and after that, I knew that I was going to live abroad at some point. So it was never a daunting task for me, and all the little challenges I just naturally have enjoyed and taken it bit by bit, and there's never been anything too big of a challenge at all. Language wise, you know, society-wise, culture-wise, whatever. I've just taken it in my
Yeah,
stride completely.
culture-wise, was there anything you had to adjust to? Were there ways that they behaved in Japan that you didn't do it where you came from, but you had to adjust to, even though you didn't?
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's happened naturally. I get the feeling Gio's more of a, I know, I think I'm more, is the word malleable, and I probably just go with the flow and just do what you have to do. Whereas Gio's more of a like, nah, I'm not doing that shit kind of person. So
Yes,
I think, which is good. I mean, that's
it's good to some point, but sometimes you can also, because we've talked about it before, Kay, here, and that rebelliousness comes from and got misguided rage and anger I had for my dad. So anytime anybody would step up, I would be like, you know, get fucked. And so, and although that could be a good attitude in some points, you know, it has to come from a point of wisdom, which only you can get through years of living and stuff like that, and hopefully shedding that hard part or that black cloud that you carry with you. But also, I think, you know, whereas in James, did you never worked for the school system in Japan or for language schools here, did you?
I worked for a small private language school, a bit like I've got, but some guy, and I lined that up before I came over to Japan. So I was lucky. But if I was ready to just turn up with my suit or suits and find a job, because that was what my plan was going to be. But I had this one lined up, so I had a pretty smooth running, really.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, but I mean, still, you know, it's no light undertaking. I think James has actually been a very quite successful out here, and I really I have a lot of respect for you, James. Always have, always will. And he's been a great inspiration for me. He makes me, even though I'm older, sometimes reevaluate myself, because I got a few kinks in me that are not necessarily very good, and at times I freaking tend to like, you know, to my own detriment. But James and I, we came here in a different way, whereas he came out here, you know, again, he's very malleable, and but he came out here with a very with a smile on his face, and that's a good thing. Whereas when I came out here getting away from a place at the time that I hated, and a group of people being my family that I hated. And so I took off, mate. I took off and I had nowhere to go. I had no plan. I landed at the airport with 2 boxes that had my CDs and books, and my little box where I had textbooks and stuff like that. And many people say, oh, when you go to Japan, don't say that you're coming out here for a job. And I'm thinking like, why? I got a tourist visa. I'm allowed to look for work as long as I don't work, you know. And so then when I got to, as in the Japanese people, I wasn't scared, because I traveled through Mexico and been in Colombia and Medellin during the cartel wars and stuff like that. So I wasn't really worried about Japan. I'd already done my reconnaissance or intelligence work. And so when I got here, I just told the lady, I'm like, yeah, I'm an English teacher. Oh, ego no sensei, English teacher. Oh, good luck. But after that initial smile, the wind just hit. Like, where the fuck am I going to go now? I had nowhere to go. I had no hotel reservation. And I had about $80 in my pocket, bro. And it was a struggle. Someday we'll talk about my stories at the guest house, the stuff I encountered. Like I challenged this. Back then I was kind of a prick, and we're watching Pride, and there was this guy at my guest house, and he was an older guy. I was 30 and he was about 42, 43. And he was talking about, oh, I'm a black belt in judo and all this stuff like that. And I was like, oh, really? All right. And so there were all kinds of races there, like we had Nigerians there, and we have Brits, and we had Aussies, and we had Kiwis, and we had the Yanks and shit, dude. And it being one of those. And so we're watching Pride, and that's when I used to still spar, and I was I was still 30, young, strong, and full of cum, And so I was used to, like, back then it was still not that widespread, and judo was sucking ass back then. They actually brought their stuff back up, and jiu-jitsu forced them to do that. brought them back to their glory days, because judo was jujitsu. And so anyway, I was real proud that I trained with Hicks and Gracie and all this stuff. So I look at the guy, hey, you know, maybe one day we can roll a little bit, we can mess around. And he was like, yeah. And so I kept on bugging him. And there's a communal area, okay? And we used to all get there and freaking take the piss out of each other. And sometimes people would be pissed too. And it was really not a very friendly environment, a very healthy environment. And I wanted to get out as soon as possible, but it's just what I had to do. But we knew each other, you know, no one was out there to fucking brutalize themselves, but there was some thievery going on and stuff. You have to watch your food. And so I kept bugging this guy. And then one day I say, hey, dude, so what's up? Did you keep walking away from me? Well, we're going to have that friendly roll. And I was like, okay, let's go. And so I grabbed him and shit. And this when I learned a little bit about Japanese behavior, which would be to come many years, which would I despise, and one day would come to peace with it. So I grabbed the guy. And then right away, I feel like this guy ain't got no mojo, dude. And so what I did is I just sat down and then put my foot, which in judo is called tomoe nage. Nage means throwing. As you lie down, you put your foot up and then you throw him over. And as he's going over, I'm grabbing onto him and I land on the mount. He goes to, I know exactly what he's going to do. He's going to try to upa. And he puts his hand up on my chest. This was before like we knew about MMA. It was still called Pride and the UFC, and it was still different arts. And it was just textbook fucking armbar, dude. Boom. I even did it in steps, not smooth. I was like, boom, boom, just to fuck him up. And then it was me being arrogant. And then I grabbed him. He tapped out. And then he walked away and he never talked to me again, even though I didn't hurt him. You know what I mean? And then somebody told me, you obviously haven't been in Japan. He has felt shame, and you shamed him in public, and he's a black belt and you're only a white belt. So, you know, and we're all here struggling for a Japanese businessman to live in a guest house. He's going through some struggle. He probably lost his family. He's trying to get back on his feet or something like that. And for that, that's just like, you just drove a freaking spike up his ass.
Yeah.
And that would teach me. It took me a long time to learn but yeah, those were a few of my stories. Do you ever have anything like that happen here in Japan, mate?
I'll jump in on that. My first reaction was, well, who cares? Like, you know, if it is what it is. But if you pushed for the fight and he got to the point where he couldn't turn it down, and then you beat the shit out of him, I can kind of see.
Well, I mean, I kept egging him, but he was the one like, oh yeah, I was a black belt and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you want to roll? Because I really wanted to roll, you know? Yeah. And so
he wanted his moment of shining, of saying, look at my capabilities. And he feels like you took that away from him.
Yeah, in a way. But, you know, I think I also had a little arrogance to myself. And in a way, I kind of like, once I got to it, like I really wanted to like, not hurt him. That's not what I wanted to do, because we're just rolling. We're going to tap out. And I was making sure that he wasn't going to land on a table or something like that. Like we cleared the thing. But I wanted to, you know, embarrass him, you know, but I didn't know that Japanese people took shame like that, mate.
Yes.
And that's something that I had to learn, whether I agree with it or not. This is my host country, dude. And to some point, some things I still don't follow, but I had to learn it, and I can appreciate it in some way. That's how they keep harmony in this country, in a way. On some aspects, you know, like some people can't take shame, and then they'll just disembowel themselves or jump in front of a train. I think that's just like, get over it, dude. Do you know what I mean? But there's a beauty in it too, and I think that's the kind of in a way that they were able to come out of those feudal days and harmonize this country, so that they're not going around like we are in Guatemala, you know, decapitating people in the middle of the streets.
That tells me that the people of Japan, they really take integrity real serious. Because
they really take what?
Integrity, the integrity of their words. They must take it real serious, because he said he's a black belt, and you showed him up, and he's just gone like into a real state of shame, like he's really lost it. So they take the integrity of their word and being able to prove their word as accurate, they must take that real serious.
What do you think, James? I think actually Kay's correct. That I find that here, like, a lot of people here are, again, the belts. Oh, I'm a black belt. I went to this. Everybody's always carrying their little makimono, which means scroll, their modern scrolls. And they're, because they work hard here, man. They work hard to do things. But I think in a lot of these judo clubs, unless it's like the upper echelon, like third degree or fourth degree, it's just McDojos.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. So there's so many people who got the black belt in an array of different martial arts and stuff, but it doesn't really mean much. And actually, they know it doesn't really mean much, because if they got in a real fight, they know that they probably have nothing to actually use. And a lot of the times, like, again, when I was doing it back in England, and it's, I have come across some really good teachers, and like Gio said, my teacher that I was with for a while, such a nice guy, and he kind of raised me almost as a grandfather figure. So I've got a lot of respect for him on a personal level.
Yes.
On the karate side, I've come across a few really good senseis, but most people who say, I got a black belt in whatever, it doesn't really mean anything in reality. And like I said, that back in England, we were doing all sorts. We did the whole package. It's almost like old school karate. Because that's what the old school guys came over to England and taught the old school stuff, and and it doesn't happen in all of them, but where I was in particular, they've kept that going.
But it's very prevalent over there within karate. Like, you see a lot of bouncers and stuff like that like they take their karate quite seriously, and it's coming from a culture too where in England, a lot of people like their little fisticuffs. They're known for. Here, you know what I mean? Like, they got some hands. They know how to throw hands in England, dude. That's one thing that the Brits are respected for, their bare knuckle fighting. Their bare knuckle boxing in some freaking backyard of a fucking farm.
That fight, he's not fully out of control, but they do have a bit of a fighter spirit in them, don't they? Over here in England,
yeah, and I respect that, and I think that
they're really pro-hand. But in Japan and China, they know how to throw hands, but they have more respect for the arts. Whereas, like, I know how to hurt you, but I'm not going to hurt you, because, they have that sort of spiritual side to it. But over in England, it's like, once you learn to throw hands, we're throwing them.
Well, in some sense, I think it's just the way that society is here in general. Like, they don't really like conflict here, man. They'd rather just avoid conflict. And I think that has to do a lot with what happened in the war. You know what I mean? Just they got tired of that. I mean, the martial culture here gave them nothing but fucking pain. So they wanted to walk away from that, but still keep some kind of culture. Whereas in our countries, they haven't really experienced that.
That kind of bloodshed. You're right.
And so I get that.
The times of the samurais, I heard those were some of the bloodiest wars in history.
But that carried on to World War II.
They don't want that anymore.
But don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted, man. They got some hardcore motherfuckers here too that will beat your ass and fucking pass on the wasabi, dude.
Hey, those samurais were like some of the most brutal soldiers you would have ever seen, So of course they've got some.
They're sick. They're sick. But anyway, James, real quick before we take off, before we wrap this up, because this conversation could end up in a wormhole into another universe. So what are your plans here in Japan? Where do you see yourself in Japan? Although I don't like to really guarantee the future not too much, because we don't know where we might be next. But however, we can also think and shoot for it so we can create certain realities for ourselves. Where do you see yourself in the next 3 or 4 years here? Will you still be in Japan? Do you ever plan to go home, or maybe, set some permanent roots in this country that you both and I actually quite love?
Yeah, well, my plan was to, I've got a couple of things going on, and the plan was to basically stick out everything I'm doing for now until I'm 40. I'm 30, just turned 34 now. So, 5 or 6 more years, and then reevaluate if I'm there without a family or without a wife or a girlfriend, and because obviously that would have an effect on what I choose to do. Then I would consider, okay, maybe I start fresh and maybe move to a different country and start, something else. But yeah, so we'll see. Keeping it jungly. And then, but in the meantime, I've recently got a new girlfriend.
Yeah, so, the birdie lose.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I know she likes the beach and stuff like that. So, but I ultimately want to create a lifestyle for me where I can be location free. So I've got an in-person school here, but ultimately I'd like my main kind of source of income and business or whatever I've got to be something that I can do online, so that basically I can live anywhere and have a lot of freedom within what I do. I've got a lot of freedom now. I just haven't got the financial comfort there at all. I've got no cushioning, so I can choose my schedule on a daily basis, which I'm really grateful for. But I can only just cover my own ass at the moment. So if we start talking about family and stuff like that, I'm nowhere near where I'd hopefully like to be. So basically, for the next few years, I'm going to really start to push on with online business. And I'm working with Gio as well. Gio's going to have his homestays and his farming stuff. And the stuff that I learned through that, I'd like to send, my part, my kind of my role in terms of what I do with Gio is kind of the marketing and getting people there. And then Gio takes over and gives them the service of, we've been doing the outdoor school and stuff like that. So,
our outdoor school, the Green Shadows.
Yeah. So, that's what I'm hopefully looking to do. And then in 4 or 5 years' time, if I can be sat sipping martinis on the beach whilst I'm keeping up with the online business, and it might be in Okinawa or it might be in somewhere else, I don't know.
We'll see. Moon. Good.
Doing great stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's been a beauty. It's been a beauty, and so today I'm gonna leave the message of the day or the inspiring motif or whatever we want to call it. I just had my knees bent too much. Leave us with something beautiful that we can walk away feeling good.
Yes.
Go for it.
Me or James? Okay, yeah.
Okay.
What I've picked up from this nice little podcast is that the main point I've picked up is going to unknown territory. My brother Gio and brother James, Japan is not their hometown. They took a risk, Whether James says that he had it patterned already before he came to Japan, it was still unknown. You could have had it all arranged and come over here and met something different. So the courage that it took from both of you to take that step and come out of your comfort zones, that's the message that I want people to leave here today with. Come out of your comfort zones. And if you remember my post on Facebook the other day, it's talking about coming out of the comfort zone and the brain.
We could call it step out of your comfort zone and overcoming adversity, mate. Because
what the world has to offer. Don't just stay in your box and be listening to all the scary stories that people tell you don't go. No, sometimes you have to take that leap of faith and find out what that place has to offer you. Because you never know, that might be the next stage of your journey.
Sometimes a scary story is just what it is. A scary story. And with that, once again, we come to an end. We get a little friction between each other, hoping that we strike a spark and the light grows and we can bear it to everyone else. Love you guys. And peace and love. Keep it jungly. I'll call you. I'm going to go ahead and get off here so that this thing can upload. I'll call you real quick, James, for just like 2 minutes. And then I'll get to you two real quickly. So it's been awesome, James. Like always, you me mate, and Kay, you me other mate. And you both are from England, dude, and I'm a Yankee, dude.
It was a nice podcast today.
Yeah, guys. I think it's one of the funnest ones. It's one of the funnest ones. It's one of this was definitely.
I really enjoyed this.
Same here.
We've got enough to talk about. We could go on for another 5 hours, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, we'll come back again and do something serious again. Maybe we can have
part two to this.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get on with it and have a spot tea together. Okay, mate. Cheers.
Okay, cheers, boys.
Bye-bye.
Nice one. Bye-bye.